Welcome, friend. I'm James, your host, and today we're diving into another captivating episode. Grab a drink, get comfortable, and get ready for a powerful story that's sure to resonate. If something hits home, share your thoughts in the comments. Let's dive in.
Manipulative ex broke my heart. How I got played in the city of angels. Hey Reddit, I'm here to spill the tea on my recent heartbreak. And trust me, it's a wild ride. I'm a 24-year-old guy, and my ex is a 21-year-old whirlwind of emotions who turned my world upside down over the past 2 years. We started off like a perfect rom-com set against the stunning backdrop of Los Angeles, but somewhere along the way, it all turned into something I never expected. The dream love in LA, picture this: the sun setting over the Pacific, casting a golden hue on the waves, palm trees swaying in the warm breeze, and the intoxicating energy of the city surrounding us. When we first started dating, everything felt electric. She was charming, affectionate, and would text me sweet nothings that made me feel like I was on top of the world. Every moment spent together was a thrill, filled with laughter and shared dreams. I remember long drives along Sunset Boulevard, our favorite playlist blasting through the speakers as we sang off key, completely carefree. Those moments felt eternal, like we were living in a bubble where nothing could touch us. For the first year, our relationship was a beautiful whirlwind. She'd surprise me with spontaneous dates at the beach or cozy movie nights under the stars, where we'd curl up together, wrapped in each other's arms, sharing popcorn and secrets. The world outside faded away, and it was just us, two dreamers lost in the joy of being young and in love. I fell hard for her. It felt like we were two halves of a whole, destined to be together. I can still recall the sweet taste of her laughter, the way it filled the air around us, wrapping me in warmth. We talked about everything, our hopes, our fears, and what the future might hold. It was a blissful time, and I was convinced we were building a life together, full of adventure and love. We crafted plans for weekend getaways to the mountains or beach picnics with friends, painting a picture of a perfect life ahead. The shift cracks in the facade, but as the months rolled on, that fairy tale began to unravel. Suddenly, the affectionate texts became less frequent, and the playful banter turned into awkward silences. I began to notice subtle changes in her demeanor. The glimmer in her eyes dimmed, and her laughter became a rarity. Conversations that once flowed easily felt stilted and forced, and I found myself second-guessing every word I said, afraid of triggering her irritation. The intimacy we once shared faded, leaving me feeling like I was reaching out for a mirage that was just out of grasp. I tried to communicate my needs, especially since I was dealing with the heavy loss of a family member. All I needed was a hug, a kiss, something to remind me that I wasn't alone in this vast city. Instead, she began to withdraw, her warmth replaced by an icy distance. The more I reached out, the further she seemed to retreat, leaving me feeling like I was chasing shadows. I remember sitting alone in my apartment, replaying old memories of our laughter, desperately trying to understand where it all went wrong. Each passing day felt like a slow suffocation as the vibrant colors of our relationship faded to gray. I would lay in bed at night, staring at the ceiling, my heart heavy with questions, longing for the love that once burned brightly between us. The cycle of breaking up and getting back together became a toxic routine that felt like a loop I couldn't escape. It was a dizzying dance of emotions that left me breathless and confused. Last month, in a moment of desperation, she told me that if I didn't change, she wouldn't come back. It felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, and one wrong move would send me tumbling down into an abyss of heartbreak. The uncertainty gnawed at me, and the fear of losing her pushed me to a breaking point. The transformation a plea for love. So, I tried to change. I reassessed myself and my actions, convinced that if I could just be the guy she wanted, everything would fall back into place. I started doing everything I thought would win her back. I listened more attentively, planned elaborate dates to reignite that spark, and even worked on my confidence to show her that I was worthy of her love. I changed my routines, prioritizing her needs over my own. I distanced myself from friends, believing that being available would prove my commitment. I even took up hobbies that she enjoyed, hoping to find common ground and reignite our connection. But it was like trying to solve a Rubik's Cube blindfolded. Every effort felt futile. She accused me of shouting at her, but I was only trying to defend myself when she wouldn't take accountability for standing me up repeatedly. Those moments felt like daggers to my heart, leaving me feeling vulnerable and misunderstood. The emotional turmoil was consuming. I felt like I was on a tightrope, balancing between hope and despair. I wanted to be the man she needed, but I was losing myself in the process, and I didn't know how to pull back from the edge. My self-esteem plummeted, and I found myself questioning my worth. I worked hard to be the person she needed, but the more I bent over backward, the more she pulled away. I'll admit it, I would lay in bed, tears streaming down my face, begging her to see how much I loved her. It was pathetic, and I hated myself for it. Each time I pleaded for her affection, it chipped away at my self-worth, making me feel more like a shadow in her life, disappearing with each passing day. I was caught in a storm, feeling the heavy weight of her indifference pressing down on me, and I couldn't figure out how to escape the tempest. The birthday disaster, a heartbreak amidst celebration, the real turning point came on my birthday, which tragically coincided with the anniversary of my family member's death. As I sat there, staring at the cake she brought, a pale imitation of the joy it should have represented, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was seriously wrong. She arrived late, having spent the day at the gym and with friends, leaving me feeling like an afterthought. The celebratory atmosphere felt hollow, and my heart ached as I watched her scroll through her phone, her laughter ringing hollow in my ears. I wanted to reach out, to remind her that this day meant so much more than just cake and gifts. It was a reminder of loss, a day where I needed her more than ever. When I tried to open up about my feelings, she shot me down, insisting everything was fine. But her eyes told a different story. They were cold, distant, and devoid of the warmth I had fallen in love with. It felt like I was watching a sunset slip into darkness, and I was powerless to stop it. The cake sat in front of me, untouched, a symbol of the bittersweet moment. I felt like I was caught in a cruel joke, celebrating a milestone that felt more like a funeral for our relationship. As the night wore on, my heart grew heavier, the weight of unspoken words pressing down on me. Later that night, unable to quell the gnawing suspicion in my gut, I made the regrettable decision to check her phone. My heart raced as I navigated through her texts, hoping to find something that would explain her behavior, something that would reassure me that she still cared. The discovery, unearthing deceit. What I found was a deleted message from a colleague. It wasn't overtly flirty, but it sent chills down my spine. She had just won Employee of the Month and had texted, "You can look at me all day now, lucky you." My heart sank, and my stomach twisted in knots. Confronting her was like stepping into a minefield. One wrong word could trigger an explosion. I steeled myself, knowing I had to address this breach of trust. When I brought it up, she flat out denied it, claiming she didn't delete anything. But in that moment, I felt the ground shift beneath my feet, the stability of our relationship crumbling into dust. I tried to remain calm, but the reality hit me like a tidal wave. Trust had been breached, and I was left standing in a fog of confusion and anger. It was as if I was staring into a mirror, and instead of my own reflection, I saw a stranger who was willing to accept betrayal. How could the girl I once adored become someone I hardly recognized? My heart raced as I struggled to reconcile the woman I loved with the one standing in front of me, refusing to acknowledge the hurt she was causing. The warmth we had shared felt like a distant memory, overshadowed by her denial and evasiveness. The final straw, accusations and breakup. The following day, I went out for a casual meal with a friend, just trying to find some semblance of normalcy. But my ex bombarded me with messages, accusing me of being on a date. I was stunned, my mind reeling from the whirlwind of emotions. I provided proof that I was with a male friend, but it only seemed to fuel her insecurities. The accusations stung, and I felt trapped in a cycle of blame that had no end. In a dramatic twist, she declared she couldn't continue the relationship, and just like that, everything I had fought for slipped through my fingers. I was taken aback, trying to process the sudden shift from fighting for us to being cast aside like yesterday's news. It felt as if the ground had been ripped from beneath me, leaving me free-falling into an abyss of despair. I desperately wanted to argue, to plead for her to reconsider, but I also understood that pushing further would only drive her away. So I sat there, numb and silent, absorbing the reality that the love we had built was crumbling to dust right before my eyes. "I understand," I finally managed to say, my voice barely above a whisper. But inside, I felt like I was drowning. I could see the cool indifference on her face, a mask that had become all too familiar over the past few months. It was as if she had already moved on, leaving me to grapple with the wreckage of our relationship. We parted ways, and as I walked away, I felt a mix of relief and heartache. The weight of our tumultuous relationship was lifted slightly, but in its place was an emptiness that echoed loudly in my mind. I remember staring at my phone, half hoping she would change her mind and reach out to me, but deep down I knew that the moment had passed. That night, I lay in bed, my mind racing with memories of happier times, replaying every moment we had shared, trying to pinpoint where it all went wrong. The chaos, mixed signals, and emotional turmoil. Fast forward to 3 days ago, and she messages me at the crack of dawn. "How are you? Can we meet?" I was hesitant, the sting of her previous words still fresh in my mind. I felt a wave of emotions crash over me: hope, anger, confusion. Part of me longed for closure, while another part feared that this would just reopen old wounds. Against my better judgment, curiosity got the better of me, and I agreed to meet. I thought maybe we could finally have an honest conversation, one that would help me understand her perspective and give me the closure I so desperately needed. When I called to cancel the next day, she played it cool, but my gut told me something was off. During our conversation, she revealed that she had deleted messages out of fear of my reaction. The revelation sent my head spinning. I couldn't tell if she was genuinely remorseful or if this was just another manipulation tactic. It felt like a cruel game, and I was caught in the middle, unsure of my next move. Then, as the conversation progressed, she casually mentioned how someone had accused me of cheating on her, and that's when everything exploded. Her words ignited a firestorm of accusations and blame. I felt my blood boil as she unleashed her frustration on me, pointing fingers and spiraling deeper into her own insecurities. It was surreal to hear the words coming from her mouth. It was as if she was projecting all her fears onto me, turning me into the villain in our story. I had always been the loyal partner, but now I felt like I was being put on trial. "Why do you always do this?" she shouted, her voice rising with every word. "You don't understand how much you've hurt me." My heart sank as I tried to defend myself, explaining that I was just trying to live my life, but she was relentless. I felt cornered, like a deer caught in headlights, unable to escape the onslaught of her accusations. It was heartbreaking to witness the woman I once loved turn into someone I barely recognized. The aftermath, torn between wanting her back and moving on. Eventually, in a fit of desperation, I blocked her on social media, hoping to gain some control over the situation and to shield myself from her relentless messages. It was a moment of clarity. I knew I needed space, a chance to breathe and process everything that had happened. But that didn't stop her. She switched to texting, her messages coming in waves, sometimes frantic, other times pleading. It felt like a hurricane had hit my phone, each notification stirring up feelings of guilt, sadness, and longing. Each time my phone buzzed, my heart raced. Part of me wanted to read her messages, to see if she had softened, to find a glimmer of hope that we could reconcile. But another part of me knew that engaging would only drag me back into the storm, a cycle of pain I was desperate to escape. I sent her one final goodbye message, wishing her well, hoping to find some closure. But my words fell into a void. She ignored my message, and the silence echoed painfully in my mind, amplifying the emptiness I felt inside. Now, I'm left grappling with my feelings, torn between wanting her back and knowing that the love we had is tainted by betrayal and hurt. I find myself wandering the streets of Los Angeles, the city that once felt so vibrant and alive, now feeling hauntingly empty. I miss the girl who made me laugh, who lit up my life. I miss the dreams we had shared, the laughter that once filled my days. But I also know that holding on to the past isn't healthy. The emotional roller coaster has drained me, leaving me exhausted and questioning everything. I've started focusing on self-care, trying to rebuild my shattered self-esteem. I've picked up hobbies I had neglected, started going out with friends again, and began exploring parts of the city that I had overlooked. But every time I hear a song that reminds me of her or see a couple laughing together, it feels like a knife to the heart. I catch myself scrolling through old photos, reminiscing about happier times, and wondering if there's any way to salvage what we once had. The reflection, seeking closure and healing. I realize that this journey is about more than just her. It's about finding myself again. I need to confront the emotions I've been shoving down, the anger, the sadness, the feelings of betrayal, and allow myself to feel them fully. I know I have to break this cycle of longing and heartache. It's time to acknowledge that our story may be over, and that's okay. So here I am, pouring my heart out to you, Reddit. Any advice, similar experiences, or just a virtual hug would mean the world. How do I move on from this toxic whirlwind? How do I find the strength to let go and embrace whatever comes next? Thanks for listening.